And before I even tell all of you this, we'll just start off by saying Bigfoot are real. They're very real. Their numbers are growing consistently. Just like the Native Americans, they suffered very, very hard through the plagues of European germs and viruses, and then also having the buffalo herds wiped out and the plains really, really, just like it did for the Native Americans, it did for the Bigfoot populations. So I want to open up by saying that I've met Bigfoot. I have understandings for them, for everybody. I have lessons for them. I have knowledge about them. I have basically everything that you want to know. I can tell you about them. I'm only doing this now because I haven't spoken till now about this subject matter, because I was always not personal. Well, fear personally for myself and the government. If the government knew about what I knew about them, that I would be in trouble, and I might be, under attack by the government or taken because I'm saying too much. But I feel now in 2018 that I'm pretty safe. And the second part of that is that my children have moved. My children all live on their own, so I don't have to worry about them being ridiculed or having them, go through anything because of what if I say or the things I do, it won't come back to them. So I don't fear that my family will be hurt or harmed because of the things that I say. So I'm pretty free of that. I'm pretty free of what the government will do to me if I tell you these things openly. So let's move to the first part of this Bigfoot discussion. And I'm going to have to break it up. I have a little timer here. I'm going to do it in 2 15-minute sessions. I'm going to try to answer most of the questions I can, basic questions. The first one is, let's get to the beginning. Scopathesia. Scopathesia is the feeling of being watched and turning your head. Okay, a lot of those people that are very empathic, intuitive people, develop that very well. I developed that very well at a young age. So whenever there was an anomaly close to me, it could be a Bigfoot, a bear. Usually it would be a mountain lion or a Bigfoot that can do that. That can make you that scopesia and make you turn your head and look at it. And if you do it enough times and you run into these things enough time in the wild, you can pretty much pick out exactly where it's at. Like you can know if it's right there, if it's right there, or if it's directly behind you. So once you learn how to get that sense and you figure it out, it helps you tremendously in locating what it is that is coming up on you. It's not just like I'm being watched, I need to get out of this whole area. You can pinpoint it. I'm being watched from right there, and you can turn your head and see what's watching you once you develop that. Here in California, as a young child, I was taken deep into the Sierra Forest. There's a entire general location between Bishop, California, Mono Lake, Mammoth Mountains, June Lake Loop, in that vicinity there. A few campgrounds that were on dirt roads miles away from paved roads. In the 60s and 70s is where I had most of my encounters and with large juveniles and large males. Also here in California, and the Native Americans here in Central California would call them Chilahumche. And farther north, Northern California and Washington, they'll be called a Apakwa for the male and a Pakus for the female. So the Native Americans all had names, and even here in Southern California, the Gabrielinos, the Serrano, the Chimesh, Mojave, Paiute, they all had their names very similar to Chilahumche. It's the word's been lost now because all those tribes, except for Chimesh, are non-existent. There's still a little bit of Paiute, I believe. So all the Native Americans knew of what these groups were and not to stay out of their areas. They understood that this area here was their area, and they didn't cross those lines. But if they did cross those lines and they didn't interconnect, It would always be respectful by leaving gifts. They knew not to go into the area without taking a gift for these creatures or the big brothers. Okay, now I want to get into grouping in areas. This is very important for the mentality of what you're going to be dealing with in certain areas, say in national parks and in all national parks. They're very protected. There's no hunting, so groups of Bigfoot are going to be active in day and night, not just mostly nocturnal. Where, say, back east, where you just have them living out on the farms and in the rolling hills and out in people's lands, and it's not in a protected national forest, the Bigfoot are going to be very nocturnal. They're going to be very skittish. They're not going to want to deal with man. They're not going to be very open like they are in a national forest campground, where they are protected and they are very open to campers that come into their areas. And even though you're in a campground in a national park, they still regulate what your movements kind of. They're allowed to go here, there. If you go out certain areas, they stop you by the roar. They give you that big roar, and that big roar is just like, this is off limits, boundaries, and it keeps you going down a certain path. That's all they do. When they roar at you, big roar, that's, don't go this way. This is off limits to you. So what we have is large groups in California, in all the Pacific Coast area. You've got very large groups, and in these large groups you have elders that are very, very mature and are passing down all the teachings of spirituality. That they're very smart, they're very intelligent. They speak, they have their own language they speak. And they're on the human side, they're not on the ape side, and this is the big difference between what they would be and what an ape would be. And since they have a language and they can speak, that means they have a voice box, which ape family does not have a voice box. Only human families have that voice box. So if they're speaking, they have a voice box. They're not an ape. They're closer to us than an ape. They have a voice box, and no other species of chimpanzee or primate has that ability except for them. So us and them can do that. So the thing about their speeches, I've heard a lot of people say that it's a mixture of a Native American, and it was a mixture of Native American. But now, in the last 100 years, I know of elders that spoke to me in English. So these elders, the ones that were, big males that were 11, 12 foot, spoke English, general English, and it was because they had been speaking not only to me as a child, they were speaking to a lot of people in these certain campground I would go to in the Sierras. And this campground was only open for 2 months a year because snowpack in that area was 30 feet deep, 25 feet deep. So that campground was only open for 2 months a year, and the Bigfoot would go up in that area for those 2 months too. And they'd be all over the campground area, just outside. People want to know, like, they have superpower to disappear and do this stuff. It's like, I've never seen that. What I've seen them do is they are complete ninjas of the forest. They're super stealthy, and the way they move and the way they're watching you constantly, so they know where you are. So they're watching you and they're moving and they're keeping hidden from you. They're playing that game of being hidden from you constantly. So as you move here, they're here, and as you move here, they move away from you. And as you move here, they move here. And as you move here, they move around you. And you move here, there's 5 or 6 move around. But you never get to see them, but they're always around you. And this is wherever there are wilderness areas where no people go and there's a large amount of game and water, they will be there. It doesn't matter where it is in America, they will be there. If people aren't there, there's water, there's game, they will be there. It doesn't matter if it's 1 mile away from a metropolis, it doesn't matter, they will be there. If nobody goes there, there's food and water, they will be there. And it has to be a very large environment. It has to have enough tree cover for them to disappear into. So a lot of people don't understand how close they really are to everybody. Okay, so we got the difference between the national park ones and the ones that don't live in national park, because the groups are way bigger. National park's huge. The elders are that are teaching all the new ones growing up in the groups are very respectful, teach them respect towards humans. So those national park ones are very, very chill with people. They're the ones that people say they kind, they trade. And then when you get away from national parks and you get into states that have a lot of hunting, a lot of game hunting, a lot of deer hunting, a lot of Bigfoot are being shot, a lot of Bigfoot are being killed. You know, you got to understand that their mentality is going to be different from a national park. You know, they're fighting for their lives daily. So their mentality is going to be like, you know, it's me or you. And I understand how so many of them in the eastern states are what they call angry. They're mean ones. It doesn't mean that they want to hurt you. It's just that they've been so messed up by being shot. They've had family members killed by humans. So it's very, very difficult for them to turn the other cheek when it comes to relationships with humans. The second thing is, in order to have a relationship with a human, you have to be a good-hearted person. You have to have a good soul. You can't be a gun-toting American. You know, it's not going to work for them. They're not going to let you in. So to a certain point, they do have abilities to intuitively read you. They know the difference between a fisherman and a hunter. A fisherman, they're going to be, you know, more open to, especially have a good heart. And a hunter, they're not going to care for much a hunter unless the hunter's really in vibe and tune with them. And the hunter understands, hey, I'm in their space. So when I take this deer down, I'm going to leave the entrails. I'm going to leave the back quarter or a hind leg or two hind legs because I know it's for them. When a hunter acknowledges them and leaves that for them and holds it up to them, say, hey, this is for you. You know, Sasquatch, this is for you. This is yours. I'm in your house. This is your piece. I'm taking make peace. I'm grateful for what you gave me. So let's get to rock throwing. Rock throwing is them trying to tell you, they don't hit you unless you really piss them off. They throw the rocks next to you and they're trying to tell you, hey, you're in my house. Please acknowledge me. Leave me a part of whatever you take. If you're fishing and you catch 5 fish, you're going to leave 2 on the bank for them and walk away and let them have that. If you are hunting and you catch 7 squirrels, you're going to leave 2 squirrels for them, and you're going to leave them hanging for them. So you have to acknowledge them, and then that's all the rock throwing is. The rock throwing is asking for you to feed them, and at least show them respect that you're in their house and you're acknowledging that you're taking their food by giving them a part of what you take. So now I just made a quick little list of stuff that people wanted to know about language. Okay, so they have their own language. And what's really interesting when they talk, me and you as human beings only talk and sing on the exhale. Every time I talk to you, I'm exhaling. Okay, now they can have the ability to talk on the inhale. Like, I can talk to you on the inhale. Okay, so I'm inhaling and I'm still verbalizing. I can do that. We can do it. But they do it constantly. They talk inside and outside. So their voices will change in pitch and stuff. And it seems like they're talking really, really fast because they're talking on the inhale and exhale. Migrations. Here in the Southern California, there's not a migration based on snowpack in the San Gabriel Mountains. The migrations based on the burrows, the large burrow hoods that move from the valleys behind the San Gabriel Mountains, the Southern Valley, Joshua Tree, move up to Big Bear, move up to Silverwood Lakes, large, we're talking herds of burrow, 200 or 300 burrow. A burrow can feed a group of 5 or 6 Sasquatch for a week. So they follow their herds. Okay, now in the National Forest up in the Sierras, from Kernville all the way up to Tahoe, all the way up to Lake Amador, all the way up to Shasta, they have to migrate with the snowpacks from the higher elevations. So what you have is the John Muir Trail and the Pacific Crest Trail. And these 2 trails are ancient trails, and they're not made by John Muir, or they're not. These trails right here were made by Bigfoot that migrate. If you've ever been on the John Muir Trail, the Pacific Trail, you'll see how heavy these are. Okay, I have to block this because start on part 2. Okay, be back in a minute.